cool. So this Booner, the standard, we're going to do like a real quick and easy, like salon level clip-in German trim, just something you would do whatever. So I'm going to set in my top line. Most of the time, my Germans, I like to go like a 5/8, sometimes a 1/2 inch if you have a dog with a lot of body. He's a little bit thinner. So my top line, because they go in a dip, if you're struggling to find where to set it, put your comb on the dog's spine. If it rocks at all, you have a dip. So his wants to rock a little bit, so I want to make sure I'm behind the dip so I can fill it. So we're going to start about here. I'm going to hit right down the center of his back. He's got super thick hair for a white poodle, so it takes a minute to get through. Now, a lot of the times with these guys, they have real substance to them. If you have kind of like a fatter poodle, I set my tuck up in a length shorter. Because he doesn't have a lot of substance, he's pretty skinny, I'm going to take the same length as the top line. So my tuck ups, I actually find where the skin connects. So I just feel up through the tuck up, and right where that pinches in, that's where I set my tuck up. It also aligns with your second to last rib. I just find this a really easy and quick way to find it on every single dog. So I just go one length right there. Bam. Whack it in. Poodles, you want to divide into 2/3 chest, 1/3 rear. So we're going to take off all of his bum now because this is way too much hair. I'm going to whack in a 1/2 inch, and I go from the pin bone to the bend of knee. So I like to feel exactly where my bend of knee is, and I usually mark it with my finger just so I know. I scoop it out. Now when you're setting that, you want to make sure you're not wrapping. You want to just hit the very back of the dog's leg. So if he turns little, Booner, come here. You can see it is just the very back. He still has these big pants going on, but that's fine. We're going to fix that later. Now I like to set my chest in, usually with a 1/2 inch. I set in the sides of my neck. I'm feeling for the point of chest to his withers. There's a nice line here. I'll often take a comb, especially if it's a dog that isn't set in, and I'll draw where I'm going to put that line. And I go from the bell of the ear down. So all of this can just be gone. And that's really going to elongate your neck. The nice part too is, like, if you're doing this in the salon, this is where your dogs are going to get all their mats anyways. Just cut it all out. Now he's got a really nice chest to him. So I'm a big fan of notching in where my turn of chest is going to be. I'm going to do his in about a 3/4, just to give myself a little wiggle room in case I want to go shorter later. I just scoop that right out. And you can see how that puts his leg really under him. Now on his thigh, I'm going to take a 3/4 and connect my top line to my rear here. Let's take all of this out. I am going to leave a little bit of fill so that this all kind of builds into the tail a little bit more like a terrier. With German trims, you can really play around with it. You can take a shaved tail. You can do a V similar to a modern, and you can totally shave the tail. It is not my personal preference. You can do what you want, though. But now I'm just going to whack all this in, skim off all my legs. I want to make sure to leave a little bit of fill in here. I'm going to make sure to stand them up nicely. Just skim all this off. Now for these back legs, I really like to stand behind the dog and fluff everything up and out. And when you're looking at these dogs, you want that nice A-frame, right? So he's got all of this that makes him look like his knees point out. So I just skim all of it off and I wrap it around into the front of the knee. There. Now, when I'm doing that, I do tend to do it, I check from the back because he still has all of this frayed, broken hair here that needs to be trimmed up. But if I start cutting here, I'm actually going to take everything in and I'm going to pinch this too tight. So I'm just looking at him from the rear, checking where things need to go, skimming all that off. And now I'm getting a really nice line from back here. I can show you guys. So you can see from the rear, you're getting a nice A-frame. We're going to go in and level this off to get you a little bit more of a squared off rear, but this is just a nice, quick and easy, get hair off the dog kind of moment. And if you're competing with a poodle, you can do all of this kind of stuff in the ring too. This is what I'm doing is a little bit aggressive for competitive trim. Just in terms of how much I'm whacking off very quickly. There's a little bit more cut. But you can absolutely set all of your competition trims in with blades, with clip combs. Save yourself some time. Don't stress too much about having to hand scissor the entire dog. I find even on all of my competitive trims, at a bare minimum, their top line is always clippered for me because that sets my length so that I know definitively everything's gonna match that. Now, because he doesn't have a ton of chest, he doesn't have a great rib spring. You know, poodles, you want that beautiful heart-shaped rib spring, a really nice curvature up here. He doesn't have all of that. He's better than he used to be. If I were to compete with this, I would absolutely scissor this chest in, and I would create a lot of volume. I would create a perfect chest out of him. But we're making this for the salon. So, like, nobody has time to do that in their shop. I certainly don't. So I'm gonna take a 1 inch and just cut all this off. So I am gonna leave this strip so that I can fill that top line. Because even on a pet, it is gonna look prettier if you put a nice top line on it. All of a sudden your dogs look real fancy and nobody knows why. It's magic. Take all this underline out. Take all this off. So this is a super rough and dirty shape on a German. So just to recap, I set his top line in a 5/8. I did a strip in 5/8 to set his tuck up. This is in 7/8. His neck is in a 1/2 inch. I set his rear in a 1/2 inch, and then I did a 3/4 over the thigh. So it's these little length differences that it's very quick. It's very easy to do in the shop. You're not necessarily going to notice, you know, people aren't going to find, oh my goodness, his chest got so matted because you left so much hair. It's just little differences. Now, I'm gonna come back with my 1/2 inch and I'm gonna clean up this underline. He does have a nice underline to him. He's shallow chested. So for a poodle, you want your chest to line up with your elbow. He's got about 3/4 of an inch difference. In a competitive trim, you absolutely want to correct that. You want to scissor all this in to match it up with your elbow, make it really pretty. But even if you're doing that, you can still cheat this part and take this underline a little bit shorter. And that's going to give you that really pretty, like, curvy underline, make the dog look really, really sexy. It's very flowy. Let's take a slicker. I fluff and back brush everything. Push it to like nice spritzer. Perfect. Sure. All right. So we got all of this whacked in. We've got a body done. I like to clip in my bevels. I do it in competition. I do it in the shop. I do it everywhere. I don't know how to scissor bevels anymore. If you really asked, I probably could do it, but like, don't ever ask. Poodles have like a notch that you'll feel when you're running your hand down. So you run your hand down them and you'll feel the foot. And then just after that, there's a little dip in the bone. And I always pinch around that and I take a 40 and just punch this in. I really love this more than scissoring, especially in the salon. Just because you get those dogs that want to fight with you, this is so easy. You're not going to accidentally whack off part of their cuff or whatever. Nothing bad is going to happen. It's fine. So I'll comb it all down and I'll redo it. Pull everything back down one more time. Hit my little spot. Clean it up. There you go. Just that fast. Bam, done. Rear bevels are the same. One of the tricks that I have found is you want to make sure you're not accidentally twisting hair. If you're moving hair sideways, you're going to mess this up. Yeah, you want to come straight down on this. Come straight down. You'll feel that notch. And when you're coming in with that 40, you want to keep it pretty straight to your hand. If you start getting too angled with it, you're going to start getting some weird lines. There. Same thing, quick and easy. While I have a 5-in-1 in my hand, I'm going to shave his face. All through the ear. So I like to get my thumb right in there and pull all of this really tight. I like to pull my lip out and hold the mouth shut. If you keep your finger back in that little V, that little throat latch, you'll feel before they lick. You'll feel their throat drop a little bit, and you will know that that dog's going to stick its tongue out. And I always pull their eyelid down because there's always that ridge of hair that they want to keep. Now, we're going to take a 7. I'm going to set in the back of his tail, and I'm going to do his ears. When I'm doing a tail like this, I really like to set the sides of my tail really super tight as well. Yes, that's your tail. Yeah, thank you. So I'll take a 7 just up the base on the sides. It's a really minimal amount of hair. It's just a little bit, but it's for me, it's just enough to set it so that I know where I'm going to go with it afterwards. I'll shave his ears off. For me, if I'm doing a German, I like ears short. You can play around with it. There is no set, like you have to do a certain length. You're really just aiming to do what looks good for that dog. Personally, I always love German ears in a 7. I find a 10 to be too short a lot of the times, especially on a white dog. I like a 7. So I'm going to lift all this hair up. I'm going to find the bell of my ear, and I'm just going to come down from that. Get the back of the ear. Just clean it up. All right. You go through and edge my ears really quickly here. You can do this with a 40 blade. I like to scissor. Depending on the dog, I'll do it with a clipper. If I'm doing really short ears, like if I have a black dog, I may go shorter. I might do like a 10 on the ears, in which case I would probably take a 40 blade to edge them. So I'll go through and clean up all my little edges. Now, this is one of my favorite tricks for poodles and setting front legs. Poodles, you want a nice column leg. That does not mean that you have to have equal amounts of hair on the back and the front of the leg. The actual bone is not the center of your column. So by keeping all of this hair here, I am actually making his leg look like it's 3 feet forward, and I'm taking away from how pretty this chest is. So what I like to do is I comb it all up. I've already set that with a 3/4. I line up with my knuckle. My toe right there, that's where I want to cut to. Cut all of that off in the front. If you have a salon pet and you're just trying to, make a cute, showy trim, you can run a 3/4 down the front of the leg. Just set it in. This does not need to be extremely long, because even now that I'm looking at it, I want to take this shorter. I have a little black German that I compete with, a mini. He has exactly no hair right there. Where that bend of leg is, you could take a 7 blade. So you can see how that leg is now underneath this dog. He doesn't look like he's reaching forward all the time. So we're just going to start rounding things out a bit. Can stand from the front because, again, you want to create a nice straight line coming down. And I like to do from the front. I'll look at my dog straight on, and you can pretty well match. You think about where the actual bone is. You look how much is on the outside, how much is on the inside. You just whack her off. So what I like to do to curve these off is I take a curve and you just wrap it around. And that's going to take off that edge that you just created. And you can do that here, and that's going to wrap your leg into the back. So you can see he looks like he's got a nice column leg, but his bone is pretty far forward in that column. Now with this is just really frayed, broken leg coat, so I'm just going to tip it all. He's a pretty square dog as is. He's a little bit tall, so I'm very okay with just tipping this, wrapping this all the way around, and then come through here. I obviously do not want this tuft to pop out as soon as he starts moving, so I'm just blending it out and blending it in, setting that really nice tuck up in. Now I'll do his tail. And I can see where I've already set that edge in. I'm going to just follow it up to the end of his tail. Now, like I said earlier, you're going to want to create, his rear is really rounded right now. He doesn't have a nice shelf back here. So what I'm going to do is he'll stand. Here, come here, buddy. It's a good boy. You want to make that nice line from your ilium and ischium. All of this is just too much. So this should be about a 30-degree, that angle right there. I'm going to go in and accentuate it. And level it into my top line. Just tidying up back here. There. I'm gonna just follow this out a little bit. And we can drop it down. So I'll turn him for you, and you can see the difference in these two sides, where you're starting to get a bit of a shelf built here. This side's really rounded. This is just clipped in. But again, there's nothing wrong with, even in competition, clipping it in really quickly and then going back through and hitting those marks, hitting those points, setting things a little bit tighter. So we'll continue here with his tail. I like to comb everything to the side, take it all off. If you have a dog with a really super long tail, you can always get a little bit tighter. I used to compete with a poodle with a natural tail, and hers coiled, and she held it right over her back. Basically, from here onwards, I just took a 40 blade to it. It was just bald. It was a super cute little rat tail, but it continues that illusion of a pointed tail, of, you know, that nice little terrier shape, without leaving too much bulk here. Because if you're trying to make a tail that's this long look carroted all the way down, you're going to need this much hair at the base of the tail. It's just too much. Now for this tuft here, he does carry his tail very high, obviously. I usually like to pull their tail straight off the back. I just whack it in to blend it out. Previously, he's had like the totally shaved tail. I'm not a fan of the look, so I'm going to set it back to a more blended terrier style tail today. Then you want to check, and you can see he's still got a big bubble there. I'm gonna grab some chunkers so that I'm not getting too accidentally aggressive with it. We're getting there. There, now you get that nice curve, a little bit of fill. Perfect. Gonna take his top line back here down just a little bit. He looks just a little bit high in the rear right now. There, that's much closer to level. We'll whack in his back legs. So you can tell he's got a lot of breakage.
Right.
If you were to compete with a dog like this, I'd tell you to start conditioning the bejesus out of all of this. We're just going to cut it off. So what I do with my back legs to make sure that you're not cutting off your knee is I hold them so they are at a 45 degree. 45 degree. Oh. And you can see where your bevel line is already set. You're going to scissor into it. And then you're going to scissor straight up into your tuck up. And connect that there. So you're 45, forward, and you're up. And then when he puts his leg down, you can see that's where your knee hair is supposed to be. When I have them bent like this, I don't touch the knee hair because it's so easy to cut off. And once it's gone, you got a straight leg and you got to start over. So now I can go through and just tidy my shape up, pick it a little bit. Sometimes you'll feel like you look like you've got a really heavy knee, or you look like this is super heavy. A lot of the times it's the hair that's in here. So I'll do the same thing as the front, I'll comb it forward and I'll go inside with a curve and take all of this off. You can also, if you're in the shop, lift your leg up as if they're gonna potty, and you can see all of that stuff that's sticking out. You just cut it off. That'll set in a nice, quick, crisp, clean spot. Comb everything up. This is where I start to take my curves and really clean her up. Everything that's frayed and broken looking. Now, I really love a dramatic hawk on a poodle. I think it's one of the prettiest parts of a poodle. I have a bit of a problem. So I'll find his hawk. It's right in there. And I'm going to take this at a really intense angle to give that illusion of a super dramatic, really flashy rear on this dog. If you want to compete with a little bit of a flashier trim, if you want to make a real pretty picture, you can spray up all of this hair here. Most dogs have kind of, it's not bad hair, it's just not great hair. So if you lift it a little bit and just take a little bit of hairspray. Now we're going. Now you can take this and start blending it in here into the back of your knee. And you're going to get that big swoopy hawk. If you see some of these dogs, if you ever look up like some of the European style trims, Scandinavians, all of this leg hair, it's barely trimmed. It's literally just sprayed up. The hair here is about 4 inches long. You just want all the hair to make that big, big, big shape. Now, one of the things that I love to do with poodles is to really make my angles. After I've set in my general shape, I start walking around the dog because these dogs are 3D, right? They're in every dimension. So I'm going to stand back here. I'm going to make sure he's actually set up. And from back here, I can still see an angle in here. I'm just going to tidy that up a bit. accentuate that chest a little. And from back here, he looks a little straight from this angle. So I'm going to notch in that knee. Because you should see that beautiful rear coming off this dog at any angle. You should always see this dog as a front and a rear. I'm going to wrap the inside of this. Now the inside of the back legs, you really just want to comb them up and in and just start scissoring them off nice and straight. I will turn him for a second here. Come here, bud. Comb all this in and up. Now, I personally really prefer to do this part of the dog with a blender or a chunker, something, just because this hair tends to be a little bit softer. It tends not to be quite as nice. So I find, you know, that thinner, that blender, it's going to be a little bit more forgiving. So once you get a really nice shape set in, you can totally go through with a really pretty finishing shear, a nice straight, and make it crisp. But I like to set it in and know that I'm not going to accidentally cut off more than I really want. Alrighty, bud. So now a lot of this is, you know, you want to kind of tear it up a bit. All this dead coat just looks bad. So we're just going to cut it off. So while I've got blenders in my hand, I'm going to go through and I'm going to blend everything that we've set, because we've got 3 or 4 different lengths on this dog at this point. So somewhere along the line, we got to make it look like it's one length. So the nice part is all you really have to do is just blend. Like it's kind of the best. Just taking your blenders. You can also, over my rib spring, I'm a big fan of taking like a curved chunker, so you're not fighting with the angle or the curvature of the shear. We're going to blend in this chest, this front line here. You'll often hear people talk about giving your poodle a uniboob. That is when this is too much hair here. What I always aim for is going off the throat. When you're shaving your neck, you want to shave to about where the neck dips in anyways. Your goal is to create a straight line that curves under. You don't want a dog that has chest. You want a dog that has chest. So I'll often stand behind or beside, in front, whatever, level with my dog. And I just follow that chest line straight down. And then you curve it under. If you have a dog who has a really nice front, you know, there's not a lot of hair. This, you know, be hard pressed to run a 4-blade over his front. If you have a dog who's got a really super straight front, you know, if this leg is actually pulled forward, you may have to go to some work to actually do that. Typically what I prefer to do would be to take this even tighter. If I have a really straight poodle, I'll take like a 5 over the front of the leg and push that leg under them rather than try to build off the front. Building chest on a poodle is very tricky to do nicely and to make it look pretty and natural. So he is a little bit short on this bone here. So he looks a little bit heavy here, so I'm just gonna blend this in. wrap this back and really pull that chest up and around. Cool. So I've got pretty well everything set except for our head. Obviously, that's kind of important, I guess. I like to work on my poodle top knots in layers, especially because you're never like 100% sure that your dog has a great head until you're 100% sure that your dog has a great head. If you have a dog with a great head, you can totally pull everything forward, whack it and whack it, whack it. This dog's a little bit narrow in the skull. So I really like to build in layers. Just makes me feel a little bit safer. So I take that first little layer and make a really, really short shelf. If you're having a lot of troubles with a flop knot, the shorter you go over the eyes, the easier it is to build. You're trying to create height and volume, and by keeping this short, it adds a lot of structure, a lot of oomph to the dog's coat. So I'll take another layer. I like to comb about half to one side. I set my scissors in and I can feel where the bulb of the ear is. I'm gonna whack off over top of that. And then I'm gonna take straight and come in level with that cheek and set an angle in. The beauty of this is you're just trying to get you're trying to create some landmarks for yourself. This doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to go over it. And you'll notice when I'm setting this line in here over this ear, it is flat. You don't want to start angling up. That's going to change the way that everything else goes. So make sure you're coming in flat and level. I really like to work some of my crest before I get really into the head, because I have landmarks, I have edges, I have a front. This is a lot that I'm going to have to deal with. Currently, he has more hair here than he does over his occiput. The highest point on your poodle should be over your occiput. So I have to take a lot of this off. Obviously, it's everywhere. But I would rather work with this to decide how high this is going to be before I start cutting hair off here. So I like to take curves in reverse. I'm going to blend into the length that I already have. And I'm going to blend it up off of what's already here. Now, ideally, the back of your crest is going to line up with the back of your front leg. So we want to line this spot here up to here. So this is about how much hair we have to take off, which is not a ton. So again, I'm going to set my landmark. So now I know where I'm going to be starting this, or I guess finishing this. Now, I'll also often stretch my heads forward so that I can make sure that this transition is really nice and smooth. So now, start pulling some stuff backwards, making sure to line up with that spot I've already set. And this has got to go. He does have a bit of a flop knot, so we're going to set a bit of spray in it, just to help give me some hold. And I clean up my edges. Top knot here. You can see as it comes forward, I still have more hair here than I do back here. So I'm going to stand on this side of him. Going to make sure to take this to where his occiput is his highest point. If you want to compete with something that's got a really floppy head, the easiest way to deal with it is to split your coat and put a little bit of hairspray right at the root. That's going to give you the most structure and the most stability. If you use a heavier hairspray, you know, like a spray up spray, podium, something really harsh, you can absolutely do that on any dog, any kind of flop knot. It'll give you that height. But I'm a big fan of using something a little bit gentler when I'm doing something like this. This is something that I would use in the salon. Still feel like this is a little bit too much overhang. So now that I've gotten a height in the front that I like, I'll start combing things forward and really tidying it up. You can absolutely get your side to side going. It's going to make sure that nothing falls out, you know, when somebody combs through it and checks it, or if this dog goes home and runs around. I want this dog to look good for at least a couple days. And just remember, once you throw hairspray in, especially if you're spraying up the root like I did, you want to make sure to be really gentle with your combing. You've now put something very sticky at the root of this dog's hair. It is sticky. Where? Oh, he's got eyeballs. Weird. Oh, bud. There. Beautiful. So now, all that's really left to do is you can go through, you can thin it, you can straight, you can tidy this up for the next 3 hours. But that's just a really quick and easy set in, you know, something that you could send out of the salon. Fancy trims don't have to be an absolute ton of coat. On the body of this dog, nothing is over 7/8 of an inch. And at this point, I've scissored it down enough that really it's like 3/4 of an inch on this body. So this is a perfectly acceptable trim to send home. It's not like being a show dog has to mean 10 inches of hair everywhere. So yeah, I'm going to go through and kind of tidy up some of these spots, make my finish a little bit better. But that's the general rundown.